All right, everybody, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into a story that's got it all. Football, a Parkinson's diagnosis, and a scandal that just seems to keep growing.
It's a wild one for sure.
We're talking about Brett Favre,
Yeah, the legendary quarterback.
the one and only. And we're going to unpack all of this using some recent articles, get this, from Yahoo Sports, People Magazine, and even the Associated Press. They've all got something to say about Favre's congressional testimony.
And what a testimony it was.
You can say that again. But before we get into all that, let's give folks a little background on Brett Favre. Some people might not know the ins and outs of his career.
Sure.
So he was the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers.
Basically a god in Wisconsin.
No kidding. The guy could throw a football like nobody's business.
He's known for his arm, that's for sure.
Rifle of an arm. But he was also known for taking risks. Like, he would throw that ball anywhere.
He was a gunslinger on the field.
That's a great way to put it. So this guy, this legend, drops a bombshell during this congressional hearing. He reveals he has Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a passing comment either. He made the announcement right there in his testimony.
Let's go back and listen to that clip.
Right.
Because it's pretty powerful. Audio timestamp to be added in post-production. Audio plays of Farv during testimony. Sadly, I also lost an investment in a company that I believed was developing a breakthrough concussion drug I thought would help others, and I'm sure you'll understand why it's too late for me because I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's. This is also a cause dear to my heart. Audio. Hearing him say those words, diagnosed with Parkinson's, man, it really makes you stop and think.
It does.
About the toll this disease takes.
Absolutely.
Even on someone who seems invincible like Brett Favre.
Right.
So before we go any further, let's break down exactly what Parkinson's is.
Sure. So Parkinson's disease is a neurological disorder that affects movement. Think of it this way. Your brain's trying to send signals to your body to make it move.
Okay.
But with Parkinson's, those signals get lost or jumbled along the way.
Oh, wow. So the brain is basically misfiring.
In a way, yes.
And that can manifest in a lot of different ways, right? Like, I know some people experience tremors or they get really stiff.
Right. And it can also cause problems with balance and coordination.
And this is where things get really interesting because Favre has talked about the physical price he paid during his football career.
Yeah, he took a beating out on that field.
Oh, he's been very open about that. And we know that kind of repeated head trauma, like what happens in contact sports, well, there's a lot of research suggesting it could be linked to a higher risk of developing neurodegenerative diseases later in life, like Parkinson's.
Exactly. And Farv himself has said he thinks he's probably had thousands of concussions from playing football.
Thousands.
That's what he said. Now, to be clear, we can't say for sure if his football career caused his Parkinson's. It's a complicated disease with multiple factors that can contribute.
Of course. But it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? You have this legendary athlete now facing this diagnosis, and it could be connected to the very game he loved.
It's a lot to process. And it really highlights the sacrifices athletes often make for their sport, sometimes without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it adds another layer of complexity to Favre's situation.
Because, remember, he wasn't at that congressional hearing to talk about his health. He was there because he's caught up in this massive welfare scandal that's been rocking Mississippi.
Right.
And this diagnosis definitely casts a new light on the situation. So let's dive into this whole Mississippi welfare scandal, because it's a mess.
It really is.
Give us the rundown. What happened?
Okay, so between 2016 and 2019, about $77 million in welfare money that was supposed to go to families in need in Mississippi, was misappropriated.
Misappropriated meaning?
It was taken and used for things it was never intended for.
Okay, so basically stolen.
Essentially, yes. And this is where Brett Favre enters the picture.
Because it's not like he needs the money. The guy made millions playing football.
Right. But his name has come up in a few different ways. First, there's the $1.1 million he got paid for speaking engagements that, according to the state auditor, he never even showed up for.
Wait, he was paid over $1 million to speak at events that never happened.
That's what the state is claiming. Now, to be fair, Favre has since repaid that money.
Okay, so at least he gave it back.
He did, but there's still $228,000 in interest that the state says he owes.
Ah, see, there's always a catch.
Right. And then there's this company called Favre. They were working on developing a concussion drug.
And this is the same company Farve mentioned when he was talking about his Parkinson's diagnosis.
Exactly. Favre was an investor in Favre, and they received $2 million in welfare funds.
Hold on. So millions of dollars intended for needy families in Mississippi went to a company that Brett Favre had a financial stake in.
That's right.
Wow. And as if that wasn't enough, there's the volleyball stadium.
Ah, yes, the volleyball stadium. That's where things get really interesting.
So Farv's daughter played volleyball at the University of Southern Mississippi, right?
She did.
And Farv's a big supporter of the university, donated money to help build them a new volleyball stadium.
That's right. At least $5 million from that welfare fund went towards building that stadium.
You're kidding. So money intended for the poorest families in Mississippi ended up being used to build a volleyball stadium at a university where Brett Favre's daughter just happened to be playing.
It seems that way, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Now, Farve has said that he had no idea the money came from welfare funds.
He claims he thought it was coming from legitimate sources, that he was just trying to support his alma mater. In his testimony, he said, and I quote, "I had no way of knowing that there was anything wrong with how the state funded the project. But," and this is a big but, "there are some text messages that seem to contradict his claims."
And this is where those Yahoo Sports articles come in, right? They dug into those text messages.
He did. And those texts, reportedly from back in 2017, show Farve asking about whether there was a way to keep the source of the money for the stadium quiet. He even asked, and I'm quoting here, "Will the public perception be that I became a spokesperson for various state-funded shelters, schools, homes, etc., and was compensated with state money? Or can we keep this confidential?"
Wow. Okay, so that doesn't sound great. If he was really in the dark about where the funds were coming from, why would he be worried about keeping it a secret?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's hard to say you didn't know when you're sending texts like that.
Yeah.
So where does this all stand now?
Well, there's a lawsuit against Farve and others who are involved,
Okay.
and they're trying to get that misspent welfare money back.
So they're suing him?
Yep, basically saying you took this money that wasn't yours, and now you got to give it back.
Makes sense.
But it is important to say that he hasn't been found guilty of anything in court.
Right.
The authorities haven't filed any criminal charges against him, at least not yet. But this case is far from over.
Yeah, no kidding. And it really makes you think, too, about fairness
Oh, absolutely.
and whether fame has any impact on how we judge wrongdoing.
Like, if this was just some regular person, would they be in more hot water?
Exactly. And especially because we're talking about money that was supposed to go to some of the most vulnerable people in Mississippi. Like, this
Definitely.
wasn't just some victimless crime.
It's true. And during the hearings, the executive director for the ACLU of Mississippi, Jarvis Dortch, he made a really powerful statement about this.
Okay.
He said, and I'm quoting here, "If someone in Mississippi is accused of misspending $50 in SNAP benefits, that person's life will be turned upside down. Mr. Farve is right here, and he is accused of misspending $1 million, and he's speaking before Congress. Something is wrong when we let that stay in place."
Man, that's a powerful statement. And it really underscores the whole issue of accountability, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, we put athletes on such a pedestal in our society. We celebrate them for their talent. We celebrate them for their sacrifice. But what happens when they fall from grace?
Right.
Do we give them a pass because of their athletic achievements? That's a tough question.
It is. It's a really tough question, and there are no easy answers.
And then there's the whole issue of athletes' long-term health.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, we cheer for them when they're playing, but are we doing enough to protect them from the potential consequences of that later on in life?
It's something we need to think more about, definitely.
Yeah, and these are conversations we can't be afraid to have, We
Yeah.
can't just sweep these issues under the rug.
I completely agree. It's about more than just Brett Favre. This case shines a light on bigger issues: celebrity, accountability, the use of public funds, athletes' health. These are things we need to be talking about.
Well said. I think you really gave us a lot to think about today. And to everyone listening, the story's still unfolding. We'll be keeping a close eye on it. But in the meantime, let us know your thoughts. Head over to social media, share your reactions using #TheDeepDive.
I'm really curious to hear what people think.
Me too. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that's got everyone talking. Until then, stay curious.